Greetings and salutations. I hope everyone is doing well today. Welcome to today's upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button. Takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload. Shall we? So, since last Friday night, or this past Friday night, I have been in touch with three new friends that were in the military. It all started with Marv's experience. If you haven't heard Marv's experience, amazing interview, great guy. I uploaded that on Saturday morning. He had experiences at Fort Wainwright, Fort Campbell, just some really intense experiences. And, we had a long conversation about some things afterward. And I had made mention of how I believe people that have encounters with these creatures, they either suffer from some sort of addiction issue, whether it be in recovery or not in recovery, active, and or they have either had or do have a mental illness. PTSD does count, and Marv definitely suffers from PTSD. That's his own words, So I believe there is that attraction. And I only say that because out of a large number of the people that I've spoken with throughout the years, they suffer from addiction issues or some sort of mental health issue. Now, when I say mental health, the first thing that jumps to people's mind is like the big ones, schizophrenia, whatever, It could just be depression, suffering from depression, bipolar, whatnot. It doesn't matter, It's just something that for some reason these creatures or this energy is drawn to. And so talking to Marv shares his experience in an interview. A gentleman named Joel heard it. Joel has been wanting to share his experience since he's been wanting to talk about his experience since 1998, since he had it. He was involved in a 9-man squad in a kind of rural area in Virginia where he witnessed a large pack of dogmen, 30 dogmen, attack 9 soldiers, 9 special operational soldiers from a base called Fort Belvoir. And if you haven't heard that upload, that was yesterday's upload, the first upload for yesterday. And Belvoir is a base in Virginia, not a restricted base, but high clearance access is a necessary thing. Actually, back then, he states back then it was. He doesn't know now because of the political climate of the military nowadays. Hopefully it's getting a little better. But anyway, they encountered this pack of Dogmen, and then a winged, very large creature, quite possibly a descendant of the Nephilim. It had wings. It was somewhere between 15 to 18 feet. It was very large. It also had a very strange reptilian-like tail that did not touch the ground. It was not super, super long. But it wasn't non-existent either. So now, talking to Joel had told me about some things that he had heard, and he's not really afraid of getting into or getting called upon, because, he said, put it this way, there's 8 of us that came back from that 9-man mission, which they thought was going to be a training exercise, some sort of specialty skills training exercise, right? Little did they know. So he's like, there's beside myself 7 that they'll have to go through before they realize that it was me. They might not even realize, because, I'll play it off, which I hope nothing happens. I don't foresee it. So, Joel puts me in contact with somebody, because after our interview, our discussion, we talked about my fascination with New Mexico, the whole state of New Mexico, but mainly the northern part of New Mexico and the southern part of Colorado. I believe there is a deep underground facility there, and my theory and my belief on that is locked in. You'd have to really, convince me otherwise. You'd have to bring me there and start digging holes to prove to me that there is not. And I mean, when I say digging holes, 50 feet deep, 100 feet deep, 200 feet deep. I want to see. Now, after talking to a gentleman that he put me in touch with, now Fort Belvoir is, this fort specializes in certain things. And I shared that yesterday. I'll share it quick here so you can kind of get a feel of who I spoke with last night. So immediately, Joel wanted me to share during our interview about what they specialized in, or what Fort Belvoir, their specialties are on that fort. And once again, you need DOD clearance, contractor clearance, contractor ID. If you are a civilian, you pretty much need to be accompanied by someone that's military ID, contractor ID, DOD ID. They specialize in defense logistics, defense acquisition, defense contact audit agency, defense technical information center, United States Army Intelligence and Security Command, United States Army Military Intelligence Readiness, missile defense, and defense threat reduction. So this is not, your typical, it's in Virginia, that's where a lot of our bases that specialize in a lot of this high end or high up gathering of information and whatnot, protection of our country. Now, Task Force Orange intelligence support activity, I could just keep going. It's all very interesting. And he wanted that to be made here's what goes on there. That's why we thought we were going, we were getting sent out into the woods with live rounds. And it's so funny, I had said active rounds because I was recording the upload at like 2:30 last night, or in the morning, and I had said active rounds instead of live rounds, and of course instantly the gun Nazi. I say magazines because I obviously know my terminology, but someone's like, it's live rounds. And I'm like, I know it was 2:30 in the morning and I was exhausted. You try working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week and not remembering things. Like your brain just shuts off, But they got sent out in Virginia live rounds. They're thinking at first that they're going on a training exercise, specialty skills. They don't. So Joel puts me in touch with a gentleman named Lucas. Now, you just heard some of the things that they specialize in. United States Army Intelligence, United States Army Intelligence Security, So Lucas is not his real name. And he is a Chief Warrant Officer 3 or CW3 he said I could say, he said I could give, there's certain things he told me I could say and certain things he told me I couldn't. And he is a Chief Warrant Officer 3. So he is fairly high up there. Or was in clearance. Once again, Lucas is not his name. And so we start talking about Joel's experience. And he had told me, he's like, we really had to cover that up. Like the soldier that passed away during that exercise. That's not as hard as people would think. Passed away in a training exercise. It happens, unfortunately. It happens even when our government is doing something that they shouldn't on American soil. Like going in woods that, rural Virginia woods where hikers and hunters could have been, but there obviously was a reason for that. Now, he and I start talking about a lot of things, that incident in particular. And if you didn't hear it, it happened in Northern Virginia, Rappahannock County, on the Jordan River tributary, before anyone corrects me, it's 12:45, so I'm a little tired too. Tributary, joke. And the Jordan River, biblical. And you're having this portal open up with 30 dogmen that, half of them were put down by 9 army soldiers. Then this monstrous possible Nephilim descendant. To me, that's what it sounded like. And I asked him, I said, well, what was the whole point of that mission? And he said, I can't get into that. I really can't. He goes, I can tell you that we were not there for a crash site like everyone was told. He said, maybe it was for those dogmen. He goes, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was for trying to locate where that portal opens up. And now we have the location. Interestingly enough, the Jordan River in the Middle East is where Jesus was baptized. In the United States, biblical name for a river, portal portal to wherever this Nephilim came out of. Nephilim descendant. So he and I start talking about some other things, and he said, well, I know you're interested in Dulce. And I had made mention of this. I had talked about Nightmare Hall in that upload yesterday, excuse me. And I had talked about Nightmare Hall level 6 of Nightmare Hall, or of Dulce. And they do heinous things to human abductees there. Just unbelievably heinous things. If you are unfortunate enough to be abducted by an alien, by a high-ranking military or government official, and brought to Dulce, and you are on level 6 Nightmare Hall, you are not getting out. You are not getting out. You are going to become an experiment. There's a level below that, and that's even worse. That is even worse. I'm going to share with you some information right now, and then I'm going to get deep into what Lucas and I talked about. And this shit blew my mind. Before we go any further, some of the information that I used on top of talking with Lucas to put this upload together, I honestly, if you can find these books, grab them. This one is Stephen Quayle, Little Creatures. Stephen Quayle, an amazing book. If you guys can find this book and it's cheap enough to where you can afford it, or I don't know if it's on Kindle. For some reason, these books are so expensive now. Used copies. I believe they're out of print, if I'm not mistaken. And Little Creatures, The Gates of Hell Are Opening by Stephen Quayle. If you guys can grab that book, a lot of amazing information. And then this one, True Giants, Tales of Giants and the Plumed Serpents, Stephen Quayle. Another great book. If you guys can find that. And then obviously one of my go-tos, Skinwalker at the Pentagon. Skinwalkers, excuse me. Now, this information that I'm going to share with you is quite mind-blowing. To me it is. It might not be to you, but to me it is. And, well, it's all connected. It really is. Tal Levesque reveals the following information in regards to the ancient Adamic Draconian conflict, which has for thousands of years raged on within and beyond planet Earth. The Draconian group is a confederation. They are reptilian humanoids with subgroups, the serpent race from Sirius. Sirius figures prominently in reports of humanoids and also reports of reptoid, amphibian, and insect activity. In this regard, the Sirius system is much like the SOL system itself. Some of these forces apparently collaborate with each other, whereas others are in conflict with each other. They set up bases inside Venus, Earth, etc. In ancient conflict, the Native Americans of the Southwest United States have legends of tall, fair-haired beings. They also have legends about little people. Both are said to have sky crafts or saucers. Native Americans speak of underground races, surface races, and people living above in the heavens. The Navajo legend states that once lived underground together with the Coyotros and the white people, or Caucasian, below a mountain near Silverton, Colorado. Mount Hesperus, meaning Venus, is sacred to them. After coming to the surface, they went south and settled in the canyons of the Dinte area near the Navajo Dam between Aztec and Dulce, New Mexico. Now, I know some of you have or locked onto that word Coyotros, together with the Coyotros and the Caucasian people. Coyotros is a alternate name for Western Apache, but translates to coyote people. So, was it the Apache, the Western Apache, or was it a Dogman? And you will see why I suggest this in 1 second. Could the ancestors of the Pueblo Indians have been the ones who originally excavated the lower levels of Dulce and the lower tunnels, which have apparently existed within the deepest levels of the base for centuries, if not millennia? If so, then why did they revert to low technology culture once they reached the surface? Could it be that the scientific factions of their race either established an interaction with the Greys and or left the planet altogether, leaving the rest to fend for themselves? Hopi legends say that their ancestors were driven to the surface by another faction of their own kind, who turned to practicing black magic. Apache legend, according to Robert Morning Sky, states that the Two Hearts, or the Children of the Lizard, drove the Pueblos to the surface after they had invaded their underground domain. Could both scenarios be true? In other words, could one scientific faction have remained behind in a collaboration with the Reptilians, with another faction leaving the caverns in starships and or migrating to the surface world and or elsewhere through these ancient and massive underground systems, or by using portals? They then set up defense sites and expanded south towards Mount Taylor and west into Arizona, atop high mesas were fortresses and towers consisting of 3 or more stories. The Pueblo natives have a legend that they emerged from the inner earth near the Great Sand Dunes in Colorado. They then traveled down the Rio Grande, setting up pueblos, the area now known as Los Alamos, which is considered evil, the home of the underworld, the little people, from which would come the curse of the gourd of death. And so it did, in the form of a nuclear bomb. The Greys, little people, are Diros, or were the little people Fae, or something very similar to Fae. So now we're hearing Diros and Coyote people, Coyotros. So, are you seeing a connection? Like, the connection is so insane that it's if I was someone who hadn't been researching this and just, stumbled upon this and heard me talking about it on this video right now, I'd be like, this dude's mental. This dude's full of shit. But it's documented. There has to be answers. In these, I believe this is the answers that we have all been looking for. The gourd of death in Los Alamos? According to the New Mexican folk myth, Montezuma was born near Taos and trained by beings who lived in caverns inside Pueblo Peak. At nearby Blue Lake, UFOs have been seen entering and exiting waters. The Aztecs of Mexico, who some think originally came from here, believed that the sun god needs blood and sacrificed humans for its nourishment. They killed over 20,000 people each year near Taos, in a cave above the Lucero River, not far from the Frioles Canyon, is where human sacrifices were made. Some say, even now. According to one source from Baltimore, Maryland, one man encountered a reptilian creature while spending the night in a cave with black rock walls near some springs north of San Cristobal, not far from Taos. Members of the secret society groups in Taos have been found beheaded, like Arthur Manby, who told of a secret Esland hot springs roughly 11 miles northwest of Taos. It is flanked by petroglyphs on canyon walls. Cultists venerate the Mayan Aztec death god, who took the form of a winged creature who removes the heads of his followers who are displeased, or who have displeased him. Research indicates the high priesthood had contact with winged reptoids who were known to devour humans. Draconian, or Draco, actually, were the true winged lizard people of Terra, which would have been Earth. And the creatures were seeking various articles of commerce, possibly gold, psychoactive plants, hallucinogenic. Throughout Pueblo land, on pottery, cave, and kiva walls, will be found decorations representing feathered and horned snake, the plumed serpent, or Quetzalcoatl. From the Pecos Pueblo, Montezuma is said to have led his followers south and founded Mexico City. Alien civilizations have contacted some of the Earth's inhabitants and practiced various forms of thought control on those they have contacted. Officer Herb Schrimmer, Betty, and Barney Hill, and others were given post-hypnotic suggestions to try and make them forget the contacts. Only through strength of character and hypnotic regression were they able to talk about their experiences. The aliens use us by reaching into our minds directly. We should not respect any group which uses a method of interfering with our brains' normal electric patterns. They use devices which produce a combination of flashing lights, pulsating sounds, ELF and EM fields. It's also insidious to put implants or brain transceivers into a human brain, and worse, to kill them for their blood and other nutrient substances, vital energy resident with our vital fluids. The Greys, the short, big-head ones, are mercenaries, and that's right there, that whole thing are mercenaries. They are the tool. They are the tool for the Reptilian, the Draco, the Draconian. And I've always said this, and I truly believe, and to me it makes sense. To me, it's all right here, that the crawlers that we see, or for those of you who do not know what a crawler is, the term crawler, I believe, is if you're familiar with creepypastas or the channels that claim to be real and, share creepypastas, they'll use that term, the rake, talking about a humanoid, almost translucent, whitish gray skin, very lanky, alien looking, somewhat similar to a gray, mixed with a reptilian, mixed with human. Mercenary needs security. They interface with humans in secret societies and the military government complex. Our interconnected web manipulates the surface Earth cultures. The 7 to 8 foot tall reptilian drake have been given directions to the Greys. The reptoids get their orders from the elite winged Draco. Note, an actual chain of command seems to begin with the rebel angels, which utilize biosynthetic constructed physical forms to operate in the physical dimension. These bodies have been recovered from crash disks and seem to consist of a sponge-like substance throughout, followed by a paraphysical mantis insectoid type being and the winged and white Dracos, or Mothman. Holy crap. If you guys have not been on the live stream, good friend of mine, Aramic, I bust his chops a lot because he doesn't believe in the Mothman. Now, he believes in flying cryptids, but the Mothman, you think of a bug. And we were talking about this on the live stream, one a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I think the Mothman is the Draco, the Draconian, the flying reptilian. Give their orders to the winged Draco or Mothman. Sorry, guys. Although it is not certain which of these three are superior, and then the large lizard or crocodilian-like Syrian bipeds or reptiloids, a dark, large-muzzled, 5-foot-tall race that are sometimes referred to as iguanas, or a satanic priest class of human-sized reptiloids that have been seen wearing dark hooded robes and seen to be a cross between a tall reptiloid and a smaller gray, a race of frog-faced amphibitoid lizard, approximately 4 feet, various types of gray, with blue gray, brown gray, white gray, green gray, tan gray, etc. skin, as well as the genetically engineered hybrid reptiloids and grays, which possess insect and other genetic characteristics, followed by various non-humanoid reptilians, such as the sea Syrians, giant subterranean serpents, the so-called dragon worms, etc., which have been encountered within deep underground caverns or in the seas, and which seem to be used more for psychic energy channels. All of these various alien branches collectively make up what we have been referring to as a serpent race. Now, I do believe that the fallen angels, and I say fallen because so many people they hear that word or term and they think that they fell from heaven. They were cast out. But that's not the case. They fell from God's grace. And many of them were very similar looking to large reptilian winged creatures. Seraphim, Anunnaki supposedly looked like large winged reptilians. In the Bible, it does describe some of these angels as reptilian looking. Sorry. Amphibian. Okay. The winged serpent, the reptilian amphibian humanoids have been interacting with Earth for ages. Many contactees and abductees repeatedly describe an insignia of a flying serpent on a shoulder patch, a badge, a medallion, or a helmet. No, snakes have skeletal indications of atramorphid arms and legs. There have been many transformations and metamorphoses. The serpent race, like snakes, live underground, yet they can come out in their saucers and fly. Now, this is very interesting right here. Like what I had just said, the Anunnaki, the fallen angels, or Nephilim, the El, which are the offspring of the fallen angels and human man's daughter. The El giants, elite caste man, the Orion group, have outpost bases inside the planet Mars. They are also known as the Titans, the brothers. This Mars Orion reference is the only source we have which actually claims to identify an extraterrestrial colony of giant L humans, Titans, Anakim, or Nephilim. The Orion star is most often referred to by some contactees in reference to the giants. Some of the residents of the Jovian moon claim to have they previously come from or returned from Rigel or Betelgeuse, apparently after being driven from those systems by the Draconian infiltration and invasion of Orion. Although we have come across little corroborative information concerning the extraterrestrial activity of this branch of human race, there have been a roundabout accounts of possible interactions with the Orion constellation. As far as a possible subterranean presence, one source claimed that several years ago a man was let down a cable into a gigantic cavern which had been broken into by a deep oil well shaft in Texas. The man then claims to have met within the caverns a giant 11 to 12 foot tall humanoids, Anakim or Nephilim, who claimed that the creator and the angelic forces had ordered their civilization to remain in these caverns and to separate themselves from the surface races where they might otherwise be worshipped as gods by the ignorant humans because of their stature. This man was told, however, that this condition would last only until the day of judgment and purification, at which point these giants would once again be allowed to return to the surface world. This does not mean that the L races do not interact with other interstellar federations who are less inclined to worship them. Several years ago, one woman by the name of Margaret Rogers claimed to have visited an underground civilization of the Nephilim deep below Mexico. They said that their name of the god is Temel, which was also confirmed by the Talisian Bani or Sharula, whose people reportedly have considerable interaction with these giants. They also told Miss Rogers that one day man would develop interstellar crafts and be so presumptuous as to approach the very throne of the Creator and invade his personal domain, and thus invoke his wrath upon the whole planet. Could she have been referring to the Eternity Gate within the Orion Nebula, which lies far beyond the Orion star cluster? Or to the New Jerusalem Command, a virtual city of light, which has reportedly been seen by the government astrophysicists to be emerging from the Orion Nebula vortex and is now on a direct course for Earth, due to arrive sometime in the 3rd millennium AD. 3rd millennium AD. You know, it's kind of weird that, and I'm not saying that 3I Atlas is anything other than what we know it to be. I believe that it is possibly a craft. Many of you do as well. It's now, it does everything opposite what science has told us a comet does. It started out as like this ball of light flying 130,000 miles an hour, the fastest thing ever recorded. And scientists were saying it doesn't have a tail like a comet. But yet they were saying its tail, this is funny, this is interesting. It doesn't have a tail like a comet. But as it's coursing through the solar system, its tail is not facing the sun like most comets do. And I'm pretty sure many of you who have listened to the information on 3I Atlas have heard that. It does have a tail and it's pointing away from the sun, yet we've been told that it doesn't have a tail. So what really does it have? I know that it's producing its own light. It's producing its own light by far. I believe it is some sort of terrestrial ship that may have busted through a wormhole to get here. And just as it came out, just shot through, Anyway. Another source has claimed that many cultures ago, these human giants left their underground cities and set out on a great expedition to the stars, only to return in later centuries from their great interstellar migration or expedition. Upon returning, they re-established their ancient and vast cavern cities beneath Alaska and elsewhere, some of which had been overrun by degenerate animal men from the Earth's interior during their absence, who were particularly cruel to the natives on the surface. I have countless experiences of military, and I laugh about this because people are like, oh, there's no giants in Alaska. But yet, there is native lore talking about these giants. And now we hear about some sort of animal men. Animal men? Dogmen? Other kind of Bigfoot? Dogmen? Come on now. Ancient records state that the Nephilim, or Titans, once dwelled in the Middle East and also the ancient Gobi region, but now live mainly in large cavernous systems below Alaska, Oregon, Northern California, Utah, Texas, Mexico, and some Pacific islands. Oh no! And also other parts of the western flank of North and Central America. The Solomon Islands, I mean, the information it's so crazy that we have the information in front of us. But here's what's crazy about it all is, as humans, and I'm only saying this in the utmost respect way, because we are narrow-minded. We focus. We have blinders. We're given blinders from birth. We are told these things do not exist. These blinders are put on us by our parents who had blinders on them as well since childhood. But yet, all children, prior to even hearing about these things, have bad dreams about dogmen, Bigfoot, giants, reptilians, aliens. Because it's buried in our subconscious. It's how can anyone deny that this shit is real? You'd have to be a complete buffoon, honestly. And then the truth, the reality of it, this information, these experiences are 10 times scarier than a creepypasta to me. You have a huge interstellar object, 130,000 miles an hour flying through the sky. Huge. Big as Manhattan. But yet has this bubble around it, 700,000 feet. Half the size of the sun. And they talk about a race of giants, the L giants, the elite giants, may have went on an expedition to the stars. Can you imagine if that thing was, like, if, in a big if here, big if, it parked itself outside of our atmosphere and all of a sudden a freaking race of giants came down? Humanity would be screwed. One friend of mine informed me of a vivid abduction type dream in which I came to her and took her to a cliff in the Western Rockies, somehow causing part of the cliff to open up like a door with a rock moving inward and down. It took her through an inclining tiled tunnel into a large metallic door with a type of keyboard affair next to it. She claimed that in this altered state or alternate personality mode, I used my left hand to punch in quick succession on the keyboard a kind of code that opened the metallic door and we entered. Normally in my conscious life, which does not recall this incident, other than vague, subjective, dreamlike images and unsolicited thoughts, I am right-handed. She claimed that I took her inside and we met some friendly humanoid beings, about 12 to 14 feet tall, who wore silver uniforms and seemed to be alive, in her words, or emanated life energy. We have how many? Two things really quick. Kirk, Mount Shasta. I mean, they had already mentioned a race of giants. But what Kirk saw prior to taking his own life, because he couldn't deal with what he saw under Mount Shasta some 30 years ago, in 1996, he witnessed, one, he's sleeping in his tent, he's abducted, and he's put in a room, and then he's walked down this bright, tiled-like chamber, like hallway, and he sees almost like this intergalactic or cryptid zoo, where he sees Dogmen, Bigfoot, in these kind of enclosures where he could see into them. Dogmen, Bigfoot, reptilian-like creatures, two giants shackled to the ground. Two huge giants just shackled. And the last thing that he saw before being released was a winged humanoid creature suspended in air somehow and chained in a crucifixional pattern or way. After reading this earlier, and now sharing it now again and reading it a second time, I am instantly brought back to what Kirk's experience was. And I freaking wish I had this information back then so I could have shared this with him, because that might have helped him. I spoke with Kirk a year ago. Crystal, his sister's friend. And now, because he couldn't deal with what went on, and people would tell him he was crazy, psychiatrists and people, you're crazy. Yet this information is here. Yeah, it's not here to everyone, but I'm sorry. During another experience, she claims to have been taken to a large underground chamber below Salt Lake Valley, where I had directed some kind of operation and instructed humans from the surface who were experiencing a double existence in this other world. Impressions are that although this collective-based alternate identity was originally psychosomatically induced by the Greys during past abduction experiences, as they have done with numerous abductees, this alternate self was to be a certain degree of reprogrammed by more friendly alien forces and became involved with various humanoid cultures within the inner Earth, who are making a common defense against the reptilian invasion of their native territories, aside from the obvious or oblivious angelic influences that they have guided the life and interaction that more benevolent beings are apparently had with an alter ego would help explain the steady flood of inspiration which had resulted in a manifestation of the current project. This is Val Levesque. His experiences that he's sharing. He's a researcher, supposedly an alien that worked with Phil Schneider also. So, I am certainly not the ultimate source or mastermind behind these Nexus Dulce files, but merely willing and sometimes semi-willing vessel for other sources who might say, who have continually inspired me to lead me towards the motherlode of information which would otherwise defy the laws of probability or synchronicity. These sources, based on my own personal perceptions, would include humanoid giants, hybrids, human hybrids, Sasquatch, dwarves, extraterrestrial, dog creatures, Aghartians, deep-level surface military agencies who are against the Draconian agency, and what may be considered Fairian or Fae type of an ethereal quality, yet no less human than us. Should it sound strange that there are these people dwelling within this planet who are also against the Draconian collectivism and who value freedom and liberty as, hopefully, most of us do. There is indeed a war going on right under our feet that is just as intense as anything that might be conceived by your average science fiction or fantasy author. It sounds unusual. Then consider the entire lost world existing throughout the crust of the planet, which has for ages remained separated from the often superstitious residents of the surface, would tend to develop a state of high strangeness. At least from our perspective, the outer world would probably seem as alien to them as the world seems to us. The separation and distinction between these two worlds, aside from the fact that it is usually only the most powerful secret societies who have access to both, is often augmented by the fact that most of these throughout history who have encountered the outskirts of the lost world often reacted with fear of the unknown when they encountered something strange and unusual in connecting with these portals, and normally wanted nothing to do any more with them, interpreting the experience according to their own frame of reference. And the reality of this other world below would surface in a more diluted form through legends, myths, folklore, and such. If, as I am convinced, many abductees are living similar nocturnal double lives with interventionists or non-interventionists, aliens, or both, we may look no further than our own unconscious minds in order to find the aliens. In fact, from one perspective, the following may be true. We have found the aliens, and they are us. Tal continues, the Elves will engage the Draco in a battle around this planet. Most will die. Revelations 12:7. Now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon and his angels. The elite corporate military government complex of this country and its connection to one world control cliques are currently in negotiation with Draco. They have threatened failsafe if the Draco or Serpent race and their minions, the Greys, and their human agents do not stop exploitation of the Earth. In other words, the elite control group would have moved most of their chosen race to underground cities on the Moon and Mars, are willing to launch super-duty nuclear weapons from deep sub-city bases manned by patriot-minded controlled orphans. They're poison this entire planet and kill everyone, so no one can have the jewel Earth, the divine tier. A reference made by Alex Collier and others to effect that some of the elite military-industrial alternative 3 bases on the Moon and Mars were sabotaged by the Draco in 1985, and the Draco are currently targeting the alternative 2 underground bases below the surface of the Earth. This would tend to polarize the secret government factions even more. Those who once in alliance with the Reptilian collective are now opposing the Draco-Orion collective forces. These are those who had not succumbed to the absolute psychological control of the Draconian collective, or have been infected by its collectivitis, you may say, when the Dracos made their move and took possession of many of the former joint operational bases. Unless the leaders of this military-industrial underground come clean with Congress and patriotic citizens of the United States and ask for their assistance and open up their underground empire for all Americans, and not just the fraternal elite, then these people will find themselves in a very difficult situation trying to keep the Draconian infiltrators at bay on one hand and attempting to appease the wrath of an awakened giant in the form of a freedom-loving Americans on other. Americans who will begin demanding access to the underground network that they paid for via our taxes and other collective economic losses. The secret of the following is a list of these organizations which repeatedly advertised on NBC during the first 19 V programs, that weekly 1-hour TV series. Advertising support came from General Electric, who happens to own NBC and has worked on government/alien saucer projects, United States Army Recruiting Command, AT&T, Eastman Kodak, Union Carbide, Chrysler Corp, Mars Incorp, Warner Lambert, Ford, Sears Roebuck, McDonald's, Zale Corp, Kellogg's. Note, for years it was impossible to buy a video set of V-Series. As of the beginning of 1995, the V-Series was released on video and became available through major video outlets. The reptoids are returning to Earth. The invaders are here. We must convince a disbelieving world that the nightmare has begun. Their purpose to make Earth their world. It is not over the human race. Freedom fighters join together for the sake of all of us. So a lot of information right there. And a lot of connections. This what we are seeing right now with the encounters, the multiple encounters, Dogmen, Mothmen, Reptilians. I hate that name. Aramik, thank you for pointing how dumb of a name Mothman is. Because we're not watching the cartoon The Tick and Arthur isn't flying through the sky. Experiences with reptilian humanoids that can fly. In the East Coast, some are being spotted near airports. Many have been spotted in Chicago, near Chicago International for some reason. Something's going on there. And we need to take a look at this. We need to take a look at where these encounters are happening. Why do you think I marked down New Mexico constantly? The attacks. Something is going on in Chicago because there are numerous flying reptilian humanoids being spotted there. Denver Airport. I mean, it's almost, like I said when sharing that information, it's almost so, it's right in front of us. If it was a snake, it'd bite us. But yet, it makes so much sense that it's too hard to believe, right? So this is what Lucas shared with me. A little bit of information on Dulce. Now, there is Dogmen. Dogmen are being used to guard these deep underground facilities. Just like crawlers have been used to guard these deep underground facilities as well. The Eye of Quebec up in Canada on Lake Rene Levasseur. That lake is a very strange lake. It was created by a comet, or a meteor, by a meteor. My brain thinking about 3-1 or 3-eye Atlas. By a meteorite that was just absolutely huge. I don't believe it was a meteorite. I believe it was a spaceship or an intergalactic ship that smashed into the earth, stayed there, and became a deep underground facility, an alien facility, a reptilian facility, right? These dogmen are guarding these things. For some reason, many dogmen have united with the reptilians, or the reptiloids. Now, really quick, Dulce, the base. In the inner part of the base, picture a circle, right? A circle 7 stories down. Just one big circle. Level 1 would be almost like a garage, would contain possibly maintenance vehicles, anything else that could be spotted, offhand. Level 2, train shuttles, tunnel boring machines, and disc maintenance. So the flying saucer maintenance, which, if you're familiar with the Dulce Wars, when the war started, that's the level that they came in on, was level 2. Many of them flew into it, risking their lives. Studies on level 4 include the human aura research, as well as all aspects of telepathy, hypnosis, and dreams. It is said they know how to separate bioplasmic body from physical body and place an alien entity or life force matrix within the human body after removing the soul life force matrix. Level 6, privately called Nightmare Hall. It holds the genetic labs where experiments are done on fish, seals, birds, mice that are vastly altering the original form. They are multi-armed, multi-legged humans, several cages and vats of humanoid bat-like creatures, some standing 7 feet tall. Aliens have taught the humans a lot about genetics, things both useful and dangerous. There are creatures that are 7 feet tall, cry like a baby. Cry like a baby. A creature that's 7 to 8 feet in height. How many times have we heard encounters of someone hearing a baby crying in the woods? I skipped level 3. Level 3 would be like laboratories, executive, like human executive, military executive, offices, laboratories, human entry, 4, mind control. 5, humans don't go below a certain level. So 5 would be like the alien housing or living areas. Now, we don't talk a lot about level 7. Now, level 7 is supposedly cryogenetics, cryogenetic area, but it's much more terrifying than that. It is it puts Nightmare Hall to absolute, makes it look like a good dream, instead of a nightmare. Level 7, and this is per Lucas, is called an abyss. It's a black site within a black site. The horror escalates into alleged vivisection labs, mass cloning chambers, prison cells for abductees who are never returning. Some suggest that level 7 may be where alien species conduct experiments outside of human oversight. Exit. Level 6, Nightmare Hall, doesn't have human oversight either. So, 7 is just 10 times worse. Treaty, possibly as part of the treaty exchange within the shadow government factions, the presence of human remains, body parts in cold storage, victims bred for experimentation are recurring themes in this dark stratum myth. Now, Lucas has told me that this level 7 of Nightmare Hall, level 7 of Dulce, the Abyss, is all of those and more. There is actually species of alien that pretty much the Draco use as a security force, or almost not a security force and not a mercenary, like an enforcer. These creatures are very violent. They enforce, there is punishment, and it's been known the Grey are a subordinate of the Reptilian Draco. So when shit happens, which it does in all populations and such, there has to be punishment. Supposedly, there are these creatures that no one knows what they were, no one knows where they came from, but are the ones doing the vivisections. But they are also doing them on Greys. Supposedly, there were, during the Battle of Dulce, people had seen, some of the soldiers, Black Ops soldiers, had seen human bodies and alien Grey bodies cut apart and put together. So you have a Grey on a slab and a human, and they start to just cut pieces off of each one and fashion them onto so they are just an absolute Frankenstein monster. The Grey were apparently terrified of these creatures. And there was, I believe it was Thomas Castiello, but, oh, Jesus, my brain just shut off. The captain, oh my God, he's in, he had seen one of these creatures, and they are almost like a hard-shelled kind of insect-like creature, very similar to a beetle, if that makes any sense. But will and can walk on two legs, so they have their other appendages sticking out, and they have very large mouths, where not only do they consume, but they attack and will bite alien, human, whatever. They're very dangerous. When Lucas told me that, I had told him, I shared with him there's two experiences that I've heard involving something like that. One, there was a family that West Virginia, somewhere in that area, Appalachia. We'll just say Appalachia. Husband and wife and kid go down because there's a death in the family on the wife's side. They come to the family home. It's a very, very small, rural, very poor. and they're there for the burial. No better word, and I'm not judging anybody, but kind of a shithole. Just they left the body of their loved one out in the summer heat. It was really not a good healthy environment for anyone to be physically and mentally. But when they did bury the body in the yard at their family plot, the next night or the night of, this beetle-like creature was seen digging up the body and removing it and walking away with it. As the husband saw this, he tried to wake up the wife, but she did not wake up. And he laid back down thinking it was a bad dream. They get up in the morning and realize this was not a bad dream. The body had been dug up. So there's one of those. And then the other would be the Uinta Basin, hunter sitting there on a ledge or a kind of a graded hill, just sitting there watching the valley, waiting to get a shot. This portal opens like 3 to 4 feet off the ground. And I've shared this experience, a ton of times because it's a terrifying experience. Sorry about the pause. I heard Belle coming down the stairs, so I wanted to hit pause quick before she interrupted. So he's in the Uinta Basin. He's watching the valley. And he sees this portal open 3 to 4 feet off the ground. Blip! This creature just drops out of the hole. He's sitting there like, holy shit, what did I just see? He's trying to look into the portal. Can't see into the portal. And it proceeds to just run off. He didn't describe it as a Dogman. He didn't describe it as a Reptilian. He didn't describe it other than it just being very large and multi-legged, very strange creature. To me, that sounds like the same thing that was spotted in Virginia, West Virginia, Appalachia area, and what these insectoids on level 7 of Dulce are like too, the enforcers. All right, so the connections are there. The connections are very real. It's hard not to look at the information and say, holy cow, we are essentially living within some biblical time of the end. The end of days is upon us. Which is terrifying, because that only means that these fucking monsters are going to become more prevalent, fighting each other, killing each other. And we are just cows for, it's like humanity is no good for these people, these creatures, these alien creatures. They don't care about us. We're food. We're more or less food for these creatures. So, Lucas, thank you for sharing information with me. Guys, I hope you all enjoyed this upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. And I'd like to thank you for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions. Never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.